So
Live.
we are live. I think
Yay, we made it.
we did it. Hello, everyone. It is so happy to see you all here today. And of course, I'm going to give an extra shout out to my Crossroads Witches. I have just been so happy, excited with the growth of the House of Witchcraft, with all the folks who are leaning in on us, finding out that there's a lot of other Crossroads Witches out there as well. Today is our first live session, and we asked one of our most talented cottage witches to join us today with his knowledge on gems, stones, crystals. Actually, he'll talk to you about all things in nature. I'm just so happy. Hello, Teseraph. I'm so happy you're here today.
Yes, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to talk about all the beautiful, beautiful tools that we get to work with in our magical workings and all that fun stuff. So yes, thank you.
I would say one of the fun things that a lot of us witches like is our crystals. And getting a better understanding of them, understanding what they're doing, how science is running right in line with those energy vibrations. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you talk. I see those comments coming up, and I'm so happy that you guys are here this morning. Thank you. All right,
Yes.
Teseraph, make us smart.
Alrighty, I'll try to impart a drops of wisdom. So I guess we should start off with kind of like general basics of how do crystals work and what are they and all that kind of stuff. So in my opinion, just to kind of keep it simple, think of crystals as like solidified pieces of light. If you are familiar with any color magic already or chakra systems or anything like that, it will become a lot simpler to know how to apply all of the different crystals to whatever you're working on just based off of the color of it. And then from there, you can go a little bit deeper by researching that specific crystal. But for starters, just go with the overall color and your impression of the stone whenever you look at it. You know, like, how is that stone making you feel? Are you feeling anything coming off of it? Or is it, you know, causing an emotion or something to come out of you? Always pay attention to those things because that's like your intuition kicking in, telling you how you want to work with that stone. So it's very important to always like trust that gut instinct. And then once you do connect with that stone, do a little bit of research on that stone because all of these wonderful crystals, they are as unique as you and I and everyone who works with them. And there's a lot of like scientific research and lore that's associated with each one of these minerals. So take your time and really get to know it on the physical plane and also sit and kind of meditate with it to get to know the spirit of that crystal. And those are just kind of like my very, very basics of like kind of how they work and how to start to incorporate them into anyone's practice, really.
I was just the feeling we talk about intuition, tuning into it. To me personally, that's the most important part is that I tune into it. I feel it when I touch it, you know, and that just it feels right. And don't think anything else after you think that.
Yeah, always trust that intuition. And there's like one question that I get asked a lot of times is whether or not like if the stone is polished or rough, like which is best to work with. And trust that intuition. It always comes back to that first, but I always encourage you as part of that research, look up how is it grown? How does it come out of the earth and that natural form? Because part of what makes that whole color theory work with crystals is like synchronicities in the universe. And part of what makes that crystal special is the geometry of the crystalline structure. And there are whole, like people lecture on and on about sacred geometry, and crystals are a perfect example of that geometry in nature. So even if you're working with a polished piece, at least get a reference picture to know what it looks like in its rough form so you can connect with that geometry. But even if you can't see it on the surface, that geometry is in that crystal on a molecular level. So it's got it in there even if you can't see it, but the energy is still running through that crystalline shape, that sacred geometric pattern within the stone. So it's
This is
always,
one of, I was going to say, this is one of those areas where I've seen a couple times where they're like, oh, you can only work with a natural stone. And I would like to call BS on that. You can work
yes,
with what feels right, what works for you. And if you love your polished stones and your pretties, that's what you're vibing on. All right. That's the one thing I don't want folks to get, you beautiful young witches out there, you hear all these rules of you should do this and you should do that. Always remember those are opinions. All
yes.
right. And I was talking with Teseraph, telling him I like both. There are times I want my raw crystal, and then there are times I like my little bag of my tumbled stone bag of different stones, and I'll use them. I like to lay them out and make pretty, pictures with them. But I want you to talk about the quartz crystal. This is my big vibe in life.
Oh,
And
okay.
yes, this is the coolest thing ever. The science behind the crystal, the quartz.
Yes, and I'll start by saying, like, if you could, like, if you don't have any crystal at home and you want to start working with crystals and you can only afford to get one, get a quartz crystal. Quartz crystals are super safe to work with. You can make crystal elixirs with them by putting them in water, and uh, they're very easy to work with. They're like low maintenance crystals, but energetically, you can use them for any intention that you can think of. They work well with anything because they embody that white light, which is a combination of all of the rainbow colors and perfect balance. So you can use it for any intention. And the really cool thing that I found out when I was doing gemology was they have a kind of like hidden shape inside of them that no other stone has, as far as we know, anyways. But there's a machine called a polariscope, and what it does is it forces light to go through the stone in only one direction so that you can understand the internal structure of the stone to see if it's singly refractive or doubly refractive. And if it's doubly refractive, there's an extra little tool that you use to see if it is a uniaxial stone or a biaxial stone to see, how is it bending that light. But the cool thing is when you put a piece of quartz in there, it'll blink like all of the other doubly refractive stones. And when you get that special symbol or that special shape, it's a perfect circle, and they call it the bullseye effect, and it's only found in quartz. And I think that is too cool just because, I mean, if you're familiar with metaphysical principles, circles are all about the cyclical nature of the universe, how everything in life has its rhythm and its patterns and its interconnectedness. We're all part of one, even though we might be in different sections of that ring. It's kind of like, I was like, all right, this is too cool, man. It's all synchronistically lining up. These sacred symbols inside the stone that we're revealing with science. So I was like, all right, sweet. I'm excited. Let's do some more stones. Like,
I've always been the witch that's like magic is scientific. It
absolutely.
really is. If if you want to get into magic, it's like the first 3 chapters of quantum physics will explain magic to you. That, like you were saying, everything has light. Light is created by vibrations. Vibrations are energy. We can learn to move it around. And so when you were talking about that, I was like, that makes sense. The all-purpose stone. And it's also like you can put it in water, you can leave it outside. I like to bury mine periodically and dig them up because I infuse them with the earth. Is what I do. And so they're it's just amazing all-purpose. All right, so we've gone through our quartz. Go ahead and tell what else is on your list.
So as far as like, in your magical practice, we often talk about like grounding and shielding and centering and cleansing. So if you had to get like just 3 crystals, which I don't recommend getting more than 3 crystals when you're going out crystal shopping. Do not get more than 3 crystals that are new to you. I have yet to meet a single person that has gotten a bunch of crystals and remembered which name went with which stone when they got home without the help of a shopkeeper or a friend. So just stick with 3 at a time, just 3. And if you're looking for something that's going to be grounding or protective, you want to get something, I like the black stones or something that's more metallic. Like this is hematite, which is metallic. A lot of people like to use it for shielding. And this is a polished tourmaline. Usually tourmaline's a little bit more rough than this, but this was a nice one that got polished. But both of those are going to be great for grounding and protection. Either one of them you can use for both. Just see which one you're feeling, connected more to. For like cleansing stuff, quartz crystal, great. The other one that I really like is selenite. It's a lot of times what you see on the market is satin spar gypsum, but it's the same thing as selenite. So if you look at the description for selenite, it'll apply to satin spar as well. The cool thing about selenite is it doesn't hold on to anything. It is in the same family as salt. A lot of us like to use salt to cleanse things and to purify them, connect them to the earth. Gypsum has some of that same chemistry to it, and it doesn't hold on to anything. So if you're using it as a cleansing stone, you don't have to worry about it like getting clogged up or, like the vacuum cleaner bag is filling up. It doesn't do that. It literally tears apart the energy and restructures it into something that's going to be more harmonious. So it's not holding on to anything. Just give it a little bit of love. Don't ever get it wet because it'll dissolve. And you don't need to cleanse it in water because it's self-cleansing. So I love that stone, and it's great to keep around all of your other stones to keep them nice and fresh and recharged. It will cleanse everything that's around it as well as itself. So great one to have on hand. And then after that, any colorful, sparkly stone that you feel drawn to, that's going to be great for keeping you centered, keeping you focused on what it is that you need to work for or work on in that particular moment. And I made a little crystal joke on one of my posts earlier, so I have to give away the answer. I said that this talk is going to be phenomenal, and phenomenal is actually a technical term for a stone like labradorite. Oh, here, let me get it in the right light. But see that awesome flash? Any stone that has a cool optical effect like that, they're really good for shielding if you want to use it for that, but they're known as phenomenal gemstones because they have cool optical effects. So labradorite, moonstone, sunstone, all of the fun sparkly ones, they're phenomenal, technically speaking.
Oh my gosh, that is interesting. So you're using the correct technical term when you say your crystal or a refracting crystal is phenomenal.
Yes. It's a little gem nerd humor, gotta throw it at.
We keep a really nice piece of selenite on the cottage altar that I've noticed that it really does, like, you keep the area nice and clean. I really like it, having that piece on the altar. I've noticed a difference in it energetically when we put it up there. One of the other witches got a beautiful piece and put it up there, and it was like, ooh, this is a nice addition.
Freshens everything right up.
Yeah, and I agree that you should not go to the store and get a bushel of stones and crystals. You should just go get 1 or 2, take it home, make friends with it. Do some of your own research, write your own notes down. And also, I want to go segue right into, I brought my crystal home. Where do I put it?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll actually, I'll answer. One of my do's of crystal buying is always cleanse it yourself before you bring it home, or when as soon as you bring it home, kind of thing. Um, I've had a lot of people, or I've seen a lot of people in different crystal shops. They'll take it up the counter and ask for the shop to cleanse it before they take it home. If a shop works in crystals, they probably cleanse them on a daily basis, so you don't really need to worry about taking anyone else's juju home. Shops that I've worked at, they all had like opening ritual where they were sacred smoke cleansing them, and there were stones put around specifically programmed to keep the stones clean for when people take them home. But do your own cleansing ritual, because that's one way of showing the stone that you care about it and you're wanting to work the spirit of that stone. And so that's that first step that you need to take to connect with it, is do your own personal cleansing, because that's always going to be the most powerful for your own personal practice. And then once you've got that stone, ready for your energy, you've introduced yourself, just kind of sit and connect with that stone and ask it, where do you want to go? Walk around the house, see if there's a spot, place it on a shelf or something, if it's happy there. If not, don't worry about it. It's like you trying to find the best seat in the living room. You might have to sit in a couple spots to figure out which one's your favorite. Crystals are no different. So just listen to that crystal, try out a few spots, and find a spot that feels good, stick with it. We like to make it more complicated when you can do that with like the feng shui bagua map and things like that, or like special tips and things, but go with what the spirit of that stone is telling you at once. That's always my go-to.
Yes. And I want to say good morning to everybody that is leaning in. Thank you all so much for joining us. And if you have any questions for Zach or for myself, please put them in the chat. I'm trying to keep up with it, on it. And I know that sometimes when we talk about crystals and stones, that it may be perfectly fine sitting on a shelf for however long, and then you go by it one day and you realize it don't feel quite right there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to move around. Just because it was happy there yesterday doesn't mean it's happy there today. All right.
Yeah, I've had a couple of stones that have been very high maintenance. It's like every day it's getting your attention, saying, all right, I want to go with you out on your adventure today, and then put me back over here. Other stones are like, set me and forget me, background protection. I need to be, in the silence, protecting from the background kind of thing. And they're fine to be left for a long time. Like, especially with a piece of selenite, keep them fresh,
Absolutely. And when we talk about the care and maintenance, we talk about like feeding the crystals. All right. And what are some good ways we can feed our crystals?
So, you asking me, or you want to talk about it, Taryn?
I was asking you, Teseraph.
Okay. So as far as like maintaining a crystal and feeding it, that's one of those things. I again listen to the spirit of the crystal. If the spirit of that crystal feels connected to a particular element, use that element in how you're taking care of it. The only one that I'd say you have to be super careful about is if you are working with water. Do a quick little Google search for that stone to see if it's water safe. There are lots of stones that are water safe, but there are a handful that will discolor, dissolve, things like that. And same goes for, especially if you're putting salt in your water. A lot of people like to use holy water with some sea salt in there. Salt is another chemical that will dissolve in the water. It changes the acidity level of it. So just do a quick little research when you're using the elements. But typically, a visualization of white light is all you really need to do, just giving it some of that affection, some of that gratitude energy. It just really likes to be appreciated. But if you are feeling like it needs to connect to a particular element, use that. Sacred smoke is always going to be safe. But there are some stones that are, really gentle and they don't like to be touched a whole lot. And you just want to like send some light to it. It's all good. But oh, sound. That's the one I was forgetting. I love to use sound. So if you have a YouTube track with some like healing frequencies, you can play that for crystals. One of my friends in South Carolina, she had a chakra set that she had been working with, and she's a busy person. She runs a metaphysical shop. She doesn't always have time to, sit down and cleanse her crystals for 10 minutes before she leaves the house. She was rushing one day and she put them in front of a chakra cleansing music video on YouTube and set them in front of the computer and was like, "You guys watch this video, send this energy to me." And she played the video and left. She said it was so good. She totally felt it on the drive to work.
I love that. That's brilliant. All right, before it goes, we got a couple of questions coming up. I've got to put my glasses on so I can read them. Can you see the comments too, Zach?
Yes.
Gabriella wants to know, what crystals are you guys wearing now and for what purpose? I have a quartz crystal on that is wrapped in the tree of life. It has got amethyst, and what's the green stone? Peridot is my combination. I wear it for protection. Just that I keep myself to me type attitude. What do you have on, Zach?
So my power stone today, this is a rutilated quartz. I'm trying to get it. Yeah, there we go.
Ooh, pretty.
But it's clear quartz, so it's good for a lot of stuff, and it has strands of titanium that run through it and give it that kind of golden color. And titanium, in my opinion, is very cleansing, and that yellow color is good for like connecting with that. I call it your energetic backbone, your plexus. So it keeps that nice and cleansed, so you're not, like getting thrown off your center. So I like that for keeping me nice and in my power spot. And then I've got emerald. I'm a May baby. It's my birthstone. I like it. And I've got a fun little, just kind of intuitive combination on my wrist for it's seraphinite, amethyst, and prehnite, which are all good stones for receiving intuitive messages that relate to healing in particular.
Oh, I have hematite earrings.
Oh, nice. Keeping it nice and grounded.
Yes, and that's what I wear.
Has some cool like electrical properties to it, and the brain is very, neurologically active. It's keeping you nice and balanced, man.
I love these earrings. I can feel the difference when I have them on.
Mm-hmm.
I really can feel the difference. All right, let's see. What do we have here? I see new witches putting in water and/or salt. Oh, yes, we know. That's what we were just talking about.
I do want to make one more note on that though, because one of the really popular things to do right now to work with your crystals is making those gem elixirs. Whenever you're doing that, if you're ever in doubt of whether or not it's safe, even if you know it's safe, I still recommend just taking a glass of water and putting the crystal next to it or underneath it, or finding a separate container that you can put inside water with the crystal inside there so that there's not direct contact with the water. And that'll just make sure that your stone is safe, and it makes sure that you're safe, because a lot of the things that color these beautiful gemstones are metal or metallic elements. So we don't want to be ingesting any copper, nickel, or aluminum, anything like that. So when in doubt, leave it out, and the vibrations will still get to the water.
I clean all of my stones, my crystals. I recharge, I cleanse under a full moon. I'll get a damp cloth and gently dust it off. And then after that, when I'm feeling, and this isn't every full moon, I have some crystals that don't need to be under that full moon, but every couple of years. And like you were saying, I got others that are a little needy and need to be charged on a more frequent basis. And I'll take them out, put them out there for a couple hours, and then I go get them and bring them back in. And I know the water and salt is fairly common within the neo-pagan world, but it's not the only way to cleanse and charge. You can also take your stones and put them in dirt. Go bury it in like what you were saying, bury it in a flower pot so you don't lose it in your yard, which is actually fun because there's a couple of stones from where I used to live that I never found them. I buried them and lost them. Next month I'm out there with a shovel, like, I think I put it here. I think I put it here. But
that stone said it was done with you, Terry. It's waiting for someone to find it in the dirt now.
You dig up my old farm and you're going to find some good stuff, is what I'm saying. All right, let's see. Celestial Light wants to know, what about other geological structures like stones or cave structures? I use stalagmite. Do you think rocks and stones can channel energy? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. In geology, we talk about there's different levels of crystalline organization. So there are certain stones like jaspers and things like that that don't have any kind of real regular repeating structure that would classify it as a crystal. It's a sedimentary rock in gemological terms. So they still do handle energy. They just handle it in a different way. All of the light that's going through the universe, it's either passing through an object or it is bouncing off of it. With a lot of your opaque stones, the chemicals that are in them are what absorbs part of this light spectrum, and what we see is the colors that are reflected back to us. So it's still giving you that same like color frequency. It's just getting to you by bouncing to you rather than being transmitted through the stone, but it still does go a little bit deep into the surface of the stone. So that's why I like to use those stones for more like grounding and protection and things like that, because they tend to reflect a lot of things rather than absorb, or things get filtered through them per se.
I would also like to bring up another in nature that a lot of the magic folk use: seashells. Are seashells gemstones?
Yes, they are. They're not a mineral or a rock or a crystal, but they are organic material that has it's an organically made crystal, basically. That's not the right technology. I'm losing at the moment, but it does contain calcium and aragonite, which we do find in crystalline form in nature. But this is done through an organic process, so it's called an organic material. But it does have the same elements and some of the same structures. It was just put together by a living organism. And we do that ourselves with our bones, our teeth. Those are technically, they have a crystal structure to them, but they're organic material because we produce them. So there are crystalline structures that are found in different life forms. And sometimes those crystals, they live their life as a seashell and then they get broken down and turned into sand, and then other geological things happen and then they get turned into sedimentary rocks, and then if they get like put into pressure and stuff like that, then they can start to form crystals if the right conditions are there. So the minerals that are in seashells, they can be found in all other kinds of states throughout nature as well, depending upon where they are at in that process.
I want to give a shout out to Derry, the Colorful Witch Cottage. She has a really cute YouTube channel. And she says her power crystal is her labradorite, which I know is one of your favorites.
Yes, I love labradorite. And labradorite's it's a really awesome stone because I like to use it for like certain stones I use for like physical protection. Labradorite I like to use more for magical protection. It seems to be good. Like if there's any spirits you don't want to deal with, it will bend the light around you so that spirit does not see you and you don't have to deal with them, whether that spirit is in the flesh or not. So it's a very good like energetic protection stone, but it can also be very empowering because it helps you to kind of navigate the labyrinths of the mind to understand, you know, what makes you tick when you know what makes you tick, you are in your power. Because yeah, that's my belief anyways.
I love that. All right, Gabriella wants to know what crystals would you recommend putting by my bed for sound, safe sleep?
Oh, okay. So the really popular one for sleeping is rose quartz. Um,
Ooh,
Rose quartz has a very gentle healing energy to it, and it actually gets its color from titanium, like what makes these golden needles. Titanium is what gives rose quartz its color. And like I said, it's a very cleansing mineral, and so when it's in that pink form, it's very cleansing for, I call it the higher heart chakra. The heart chakra can be like green or pink, but I feel like there's part of the heart that's more like intuitive, that's pinky to me. So it definitely helps you to get into that more daydreamy kind of state, which can help with sleep, and it's also cleansing, so it helps you like filter through and process stuff to make sure that you have a nice restful restorative night's sleep. um, but other people, they like amethyst, they like hematite. Get it, what are you vibing on, but rose quartz is one of my go-to ones.
and I would also like to add a hunk of the Himalayan salt, where those nice Himalayan salts, they really do change the energy, the air. There's a whole cleansing thing going on. Put that beside your bed as well. All
Hmm.
right, we have Fire Dancing Flame wants to know what are good crystals to start working with? I have them, but not feeling like I actually use them. I see you're putting it up on a shelf. I would say incorporate it in your divination. What do you
And
say, Tessa?
well, yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, incorporate it in your divination, and there's an example that I like to give. If you can use crystals, or to use crystals intuitively, you have to start listening to your gut, and trusting your intuition. So if you have a few that are sitting on a shelf, do try to just tune into yourself, see what it is that you need help with, and then just kind of walk around, pick them up, see which one you're connecting with in that moment. And the reason I say that is because, like, in my little example I like to use, we have Mr. Coons who needs a new job, and if he looks into a crystal or gemstone magic book, he's probably going to see a whole list of different stones for employment, manifesting, abundance, things like that. But if he actually sits and focuses on his situation, he might be drawn to something like a blue calcite, which traditionally doesn't have anything associated with money or career or anything like that. But if the reason that he lost his last job is because of his temper or his inability to speak effectively, that blue calcite is what he needs to work with in order to manifest his goal, his perfect job, because it's addressing what he needs to work on in that moment. Um, and then,
Sometimes the crystals know better than us.
yes, absolutely. But yeah, and then just like start, if you don't know how to work with it on a regular basis, just put it somewhere that you're going to see it on a regular basis, like bathroom mirror, if you, by your keys as you walk out the door. Keep it in your pocket. It will act as like a touchstone reminder of that thing that you're working on. Or you can, see about, making your gem elixir so that you're drinking in that vibration. Just have fun with it and just be aware of it and why you're using it in that moment. A lot of it comes down to mindfulness.
Oh, I like that. That's really good. All right, the next we have is I have a selenite bowl and selenite plate that I use to clean my jewelry at the end of the day. Ooh, that's a
I
good
love
one
that.
for all of us. I'd love that. I'm gonna have to go get me a selenite bowl now so that way I can put all my little pieces of jewelry. All right, Marcus wants to know, have either of you seen the show Steven Universe?
Yeah,
Characters are physical manifestations of stones and represent their properties. No, I have not seen this. Have you?
yes, it is. It is like one of the best, cutest little feel-good shows ever, right? In my opinion, uh, they do really cool stuff. not only with gemstones, but also with like different social things. It's very woke, but I love all of the characters, and I think amethyst is probably my favorite. Uh, um, although emerald, you know, because birthstone, and it was voiced by one of my favorite drag queens, Jinx Monsoon. So I'm a little torn
Oh, I
between.
love Jinx. I did. Oh, I like Jinx. All right, we have Blake Sullivan. What's can you Moldavite and what is this? Hermeker? Am I saying that right? Lean in and read this.
It's not letting me scroll through the comments.
Oh, it's the Herkimer.
Oh,
H-E-R-I.
yes. I know what you
I
mean.
know. Okay, you know it. All right. All right. He says he uses those as a tarot card readers. Are there any other stones good for enhancing psychic abilities?
Yes, and actually, this will also answer our YouTube question from Raina K about Lemurian quartz.
Mm.
We'll cover all three of those guys. Um, so as far as like Moldavite and Herkmers go, like I love Moldavite, partially because it's green. I am partial to green. It's my power color. But Moldavite's really cool in my opinion because they call it an amorphous gem, so it doesn't have a crystalline structure to it. It's a type of natural glass that was formed from a meteorite impact that happened in the Czech Republic, Northwest Germany kind of area. It's a very large crater impact, so it covers a couple different countries. But the stone is usually like a beautiful green color. It has some of that like star energy to it, so it can definitely help connect you to things beyond this world. I love that. And the Herkmers are really cool because they're often called Herkimer diamonds, but that is a misnomer. It's Herkimer quartz. It comes from Herkmeyer, New York, and they're beautifully formed pieces of quartz crystal. They usually have a double termination to them, so they point energy in two directions. And excuse me. And they also sometimes will have these little black inclusions inside of them, and so they look a little bit like diamonds because of that. But you can use that black point inside the Herkimer quartz as a focal point for astral projection, having out of body experiences. And the first time I tried to work with one, I put it in my pillow because I thought it'd be a good idea to astral travel while I was sleeping, which do not recommend. It makes you very tired when you wake up. But the Herkimer, it felt like the vibration from it was so intense. It felt like someone had their hands on both sides of my head and was like shaking my head up and down on the pillow. I was like, no, too intense, but on the shelf. So yes, those are definitely very powerful stones. And then the other powerful form of quartz is those Lemurian seed quartz. They have this really cool etching that's on the side of them. They'll either be in like little triangles or it'll be just these like step barcode things. And the not to burst anyone's bubble, but they are found in nature as like growth formations. But um, there are some that are found just kind of like randomly loose in places like they've already been mined with and been forgotten about kind of thing. And it's thought that they were left behind by the ancient civilization of Lemuria, and those etchings have all of their wisdom like encoded in those stones. Lemurians were really cool. Research them. They've got various histories. It's one of those like pre-civilization stories, but in my opinion, they're like the energy is all about interconnectedness. They learned how to tap into that collective consciousness so that information could be very much streamlined to one another. And they use the quartz crystals as record keepers and as energy holders for transmitting that information. So when you rub your thumbs along those lines, you're supposed to be able to receive some of that energy and some of that wisdom of how they work with crystals and overcame certain social issues to make sure that you could all connect openly. But other than those two, I really like charite. Um, it's Charoite. My dyslexic brain spelled that right. Um, but it's the
Okay.
other like, like if you have to add something in besides moldavite or a different type of quartz, I'd go with charite. It's a beautiful purple stone, so it definitely activates some of those upper chakra energy centers, and it's phenomenal. It has a cool optical effect, and they describe it as granny hairs or crone hairs because it's these silvery wispy
Ooh, pretty.
streaks that go through it, and it's beautiful stone. A lot of people use it as an ascension stone to increase their vibration, and in my opinion, it helps you to identify karmic cycles, different kind of like life lessons that would be repeating themselves. So you can see them for what they are and decide, like, do I want to work on this, or do I want to put this off to the side for a while, or how can I break this karmic cycle so that I can get out of that loop? So Charre is definitely a good one to add to that intuitive bundle.
Okay. We have another question. Oh, this is funny. Does size matter?
I mean,
Of
hey,
your crystal, of your crystal, Teseraph. I was talking about your crystal.
sorry, I got my mind out of the gutter. Um, so as far as size, I'd say that that's one of those things that you're going to have to decide for yourself. In my opinion, it does not matter. Like I said, that Herkimer quartz, it felt like it was shaking my head off my bed. It was literally this tiny. It was tiny, tiny little quartz crystal, and then the energy that was inside of it was just so intense. Um, so don't ever worry about the size. Worry about how strong is the spirit of that crystal and how well are you connecting to it.
That's what I was like. Don't judge a book by its cover. Is my first. If you see you're like, oh, it has to be big, big, big. I have to have a big hook. Just don't do that. Let each one has its own spirit, and that might be a pretty little piece of polished stone, but you can feel every piece of the energy it's bringing off, and it's a huge energy field it's creating. Okay. All right, let's see. We have Angel Aura wants to know if the shape of a crystal or stone carved, when it's been carved, does that change the effect of it? For example, I love heart-shaped crystals, and I've seen dragon heads that I want to buy too. I know another common thing, and I have a couple, is the quartz skulls,
Mm-hmm.
where once it's carved into that skull shape, then I'm opening up spiritual realm folk. What's your thoughts on this?
I think it definitely has the energy of that crystal. Um, I mean, it's kind of like, we go through life and we might be in a relationship and it shapes us and changes us. Crystals, they have the same things happen to them when they pass through different people's hands. And when it passes through the hands of a carver, a lot of the people that I have spoken to in the gem and like the gem world, um, they're very intuitive people. They don't often talk about it, but they have a natural affinity to the spirits of these stones. And sometimes they're able to, like hold a stone and just know what shape that stone wants to be in so that it will be able to help the person it's meant to go to. So it's one of those kind of like, we don't talk about it too much, but we all know that we're listening to the stones and kind of allowing the stone to inspire the creative process of whether faceting it into a gem or carving it into a shape. I like to use different shapes and things for crystal grids in particular. And you can find crystals that are in the shape of skulls. We can find other different body parts even, or whole bodies, or different mythological beings or creatures, or even any natural elements and sacred symbols like the heart. And all of those can be used to kind of basically state what type of spirit or what type of energy it is that you want to work with through that stone. And then the different shapes like points or things like that, I use those for, how do I want that energy to flow? How do I want to direct and coordinate those energies once I've invited those spirits into that particular working or spell or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, definitely pay attention to the shape. Some people have this weird belief around carved crystals that it kills the spirit of it. I think I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but if you feel like the crystal may have wanted to go to sleep so that it didn't have to experience the cutting and polishing thing, you can always wake it back up. Ask, just do a little prayer to have the spirit of the crystal return or wake up, or place some healing frequencies around it to get it to start to sparkle and shine. Do what you feel guided to.
All right. Well, actually, Sonia is bringing up what we were talking about. I have so many crystals that I've forgotten what some of they are, because so many of them look alike. And that's what we're talking, that take them home, 1 or 2 or 3 at a time, and get to know each one. I would assume now with Google it, you can do a little research and identify your stones. What's a good way to identify a stone that you don't remember what it is at Teseraph?
So this is one of those things that I would recommend, kind of like a book to reference. I wouldn't recommend a metaphysical book per se, just because they tend to have 1 or 2 really pretty examples of the stone, but not a whole lot else. So one of the gemological tools that I like to use in identifying a stone, because some of them do look very similar, it's called Gemstones of the World, and it is by Walter Schumann. There are a couple of different editions to it, but each stone has its own page, and on the second part of the page, you'll see several different examples of that stone and different, whether it's raw, different grades of raw, different grades of cut and polished. It's a great visual reference for trying to identify some of these stones. So Gemstones of the World, it's available on Amazon and all, any fun book place. You can get it at Barnes & Noble or Books A Million. It's everywhere. And the edition that I have, when I was saying, Unspoken Role, we're sensitive to energy in the gem world. In the back of it, it has a little how to use crystals for energy healing, a little short section. It's yeah, we know.
That's what I'm like, everybody knows. All right, let's see, next one. Audio is great, video is stuck in a loop. I'm really sorry about that if you're having technicals with us. We are at the mercy of the internet, YouTube, Facebook gods. So we're standing on a very precarious crossroads, hoping everybody is paying attention, listening. Is there any crystal for help with alcoholism?
The one that is most commonly associated with sobriety is amethyst. When I was first getting into crystals, I don't know if it's still available now, but I believe there is a website that's, if you Google, if you follow the 12-step program, if you Google stones to sobriety, 12 stones to sobriety, there was a great website that had crystal and gem lore, and it would tell you which crystals to work with when you're working on the different steps.
Wow.
But in general, amethyst is associated with sobriety, and there's a beautiful Greek myth behind it, where there was a woman being chased by the god of wine, Bacchus, and because he was, having good party and drinking his wine, maybe overindulged, and he was chasing after this young maiden, and a goddess took pity on her and protected her by turning her into a solid piece of quartz. When Bacchus sobered up, he realized, that he was the reason she had gotten turned into stone. He felt sorry, and as a token of forgiveness, or asking for forgiveness, he poured his wine over the stone, and it turned to purple, amethyst, and that's why it's associated with sobriety. It helps you to remember why you need to keep your senses about you, so that you don't, act on all of those crazy wild animal instincts that sometimes get us in trouble or jail.
I I love that story. I've never heard that story before. Oh my
All
gosh.
kinds of lore, man. You gotta get into it.
That's some good. That's what we talk to learn the stories behind these, different magical tools, elements we work with. All right. Love Charlight. Why am I the one that has to say the words?
Charmite. You got it.
Charlight. Yes. Um, okay. What do you think of black mirrors and crystal balls? Oh, and this is from Anthony. Hello, Anthony.
Oh, hi.
Anthony's our UK witch. We know he's sitting over there in England peering in on us. All right. What do you think of black mirrors and crystal balls?
Well, I personally love them. I like any kind of like divination tool. Like if we're tapping into spirit, I'm there. Um, but like the black mirrors are I've always found scrying to be really fascinating, and you can scry with a black mirror or a crystal ball. Both of them are going to be good mediums because it's the intention of scrying is to focus on an object that is kind of neutral, that you can just use as a point to fixate on, and you want to keep your eyes open so it gives you something to look at as you're doing your meditation, tapping into spirit. And the idea is that those visions will kind of project onto that object. So you can start to see images or colors or things like that within the stone, and they're projection from your mind's eye onto the physical object. But the black mirrors are awesome, especially if you can get one that's made of obsidian. Natural glass is awesome for like in gemology. They try to tell you a lot, how to distinguish fakes from natural material, and natural glass is one of those things that they have a really hard time recreating even in a lab setting. There's a special relationship between the optical density of the glass and the physical density of the glass that is only found in nature. And it's the same for moldavite, Lemurian desert glass, or obsidian. So it has a very unique energy to it that we cannot really create in a lab. And so if you can get a scrying mirror made of a natural stone, whether it's obsidian or labradorite or anything like that, highly recommend, because it will definitely add its own kind of strength to your focus and whatever it is you're trying to work on. In crystal balls, I like to use them for scrying or in grids, because in gridding for directing energy, they can send the energy evenly out to a room. So if you have a room that you want to be kind of just filled up with love, like your kitchen, you want to get a nice crystal ball or a selenite sphere or a rose quartz sphere and just put it somewhere in the room, and it will push all that energy out evenly, fill the space with that nice intention that you've set. But in a grid, it can also act as a doorway for spirit. So you can use that sphere shape to act as a portal when you're connecting with things.
Ooh, yes, yes, yes. And of course, for witches on a budget, and you can also use the shiny surface of your phone. I
Which
will.
is actually a synthetic crystal most of the time. When they started advertising the touch screens, you probably saw sapphire screen. It's synthetic corundum that's been made into a sheet. So it's like a sapphire. It really it's the mineral sapphire, but it's synthetically made, so it has the aluminum oxide. So it
So
is a
the
crystal.
property. Oh, I love that. That's yeah. See. All right. Let's see. Outdoor girl. Could you still use the energy of quartz countertops like in the kitchen for kitchen magic or doing rituals? Oh, your quartz countertops in your kitchens. How magical are they?
Super magical, and actually so I've seen quartz, I've seen labradorite, I've seen they had this weird, I don't remember what they called it, but it was black moonstone. So it had like these silvery flashes to it, but they're natural minerals. They're natural, and they've got chunks of crystal in them. So absolutely, go ahead and use it if you've got it. I've been telling my husband, like, when I can afford that rose quartz bathtub, it is going in. Like, so if you've got quartz or any other kind of crystal, readily accessible in your house, use it. Um, One of the things that we kind of don't realize is that drywall actually uses gypsum. They use gypsum powder in drywall. So that selenite crystal, you have, and they're industrial grade, but they're in your drywall. Take a little time, give your walls a little love, activate the crystals within your walls, ask them to, keep the house nice and clean. Use anytime you see a crystal or a piece of metal in your house, just like program it with a little bit of love and intention.
Okay, let's see here. We have Anna Prado says, love this. Thank you. You're more than welcome, Anna. Sonia says, opalite is beautiful, but it's man-made. Is it just nice to look at, or does it have magical properties?
So I don't personally feel a whole lot from opalite, but that's just probably because I don't vibe with opals in general very much. But it is it's more closely related to glass than it is opal. You can find synthetic opals, and opal, when it's found in nature, it's these tiny little spheres of silica, and they're if you get the right sizes grouped together and the right arrangement, you get this beautiful splash of all of the different colors of the rainbow, and it has a very irregular pattern to it. And they can make synthetic opal, where that's the silica spheres stacked, but it's under a controlled process, so the patterns that it makes are pretty regular and pretty easy to identify. But opalite is usually a special type of glass, so it doesn't have anything really related to the gem opal, but because it is glass, it is using natural minerals to be made. You can program it with your own intention, show it some love. If you want to, have invite a spirit that you want to work with, and you want to give it like a physical object to anchor to you with, an opalite would be perfect because it doesn't have a spirit already in it that you boot out kind of thing. You can just kind of program it with whatever, give it your own spirit, so that you can have something tangible to focus on when you're working with that energy.
All right, we have Kay. Oh, Kay has been just one of my fans on YouTube for a very long time. And I just want to say thank you, Kay, for all those wonderful comments you leave on the videos and everything. I'm so happy that we're able to inspire you. Donna's in Vegas and says, hello from Las Vegas. Awesome to see you live. And how does the process of making aura quartz change the energy of the crystal? I think that they are pretty, but it throws me off because they don't look that way naturally.
That makes sense. I mean, that's kind of like a common thing that we run into when we're working with crystals is how have they been treated? Because more often than not, they have undergone some form of treatment. We've known that people have been treating gemstones with heat and radiation, as well as dyeing them and making synthetic ones since ancient times. Like ancient Egypt, they've got recipes for how to enhance the color of a crystal. There's a lot of differing opinions. In the gem industry, is as long as a treatment is stable, which means, leaving your ring out in the sun for a little while or putting it in water or anything like that, it's not going to affect the color, then it's considered a stable treatment. And more often than not, with the stable treatments, it's a heat treatment or radiation, and it's affecting the crystal on a molecular level. So part of how we get the different colors and things is what's going on a molecular level. So it's influencing that down to its, like, that's like us trying to do DNA repair, energy therapy kind of thing. Like they are changing the DNA kind of that crystal. and it changes how the energy flows through it. So the 95% of gemstones that we see on the market, whether it's quartz, aquamarine, tourmalines, things like that, a lot of them have been treated. Very few of them have not. But it has to deal with the chemistry that's in the stone. A treatment like the aura quartz, though, is what they call a coating, and it just bonds to the surface of the stone. But it's usually done through like an electroplating type process. So there is an electrical current that's involved, and what gets adhered to the stone are metallic alloys. So aqua aura quartz is typically like 24 karat gold, just pure gold on the quartz, and it gives it that blue color. But you can add things like iridium, nickel, copper, all kinds of things to get different colors. And in my opinion, like it's adding something to it. Quartz is such a neutral energy on its own, that whenever you're adding a metal to it, you're basically getting the benefits of the quartz and the metal. It's like two separate things that are working together as one. But it's no different than like when someone makes orgonite and they use crystals, they're doing something that, you know, if the crystal didn't want to be electroplated or put into orgonite, it wouldn't have wound up with that person, you know? But do
Yeah.
research into the metal that colors it, and that'll give you some information on the energy of the combination of the quartz with that.
And Kay says she loves us. You're so sweet, Kay. I ran through the questions. We have been chatting for an hour now.
Woo woo, we made it.
Woo, woo. I hope we gave some good information to all you witches and magical folks out there. I know personally, I learned a lot of stuff from Teseraph today. If they would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way to contact you? How can we get up with Teseraph?
So you can, if you want to schedule a one-on-one session with me or anything like that, check out my website. My schedule is up there. And if you want to follow what I'm doing, check out the Facebook page, Teseraph. And I usually post little updates of what I've got going on there. So, and Instagram, of course, for if you want some fun pictures of crystals and magic.
Yes, and of course, you know, I want to tell all you YouTube folk out there watching that, please hit the subscribe button. And if you are vibing, leaning in, wanting to know more about what we do, please check out houseofwitchcraft.com, and that will tell you more about my world, where Zach and I go and dance around full moons together and other fun magical things. Oh, okay, let's see what this one is. I have to put my glasses on, y'all. All right. Oh, Gabriella just says thank you so much. She enjoyed the information. All right, witches, thank you all so, so much for giving us this opportunity. Thank you, Teseraph, for going live with me through all my technical challenges. You know, I'm trying. And I want all of y'all. Go ahead.
I was just say you're so much fun. So thank you for having me on, and thank you everyone for tuning in and listening to me ramble about my favorite things. So yes, thank you.
And you know, I'm going to say it. I hope y'all are having as bright of a blessed day as we're having. And as always, amen, blessed be, ashe, and a bobo.